What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Extra Point College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Carnes, joined as always by my co-host, Daniel Hammock. Daniel, week one, a long week one in the books. Time to turn the page to week two. More of a normal week this week, but we still had trouble narrowing down 7 games because there's some great interconference matchups that aren't ranked. There's some great out-of-conference matchups that aren't ranked. Some great games on this weekend that, as a college football fan, I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, I think that it's tough, especially for if there's casual fans out there that they come into week one where there's all this just buzz and just all the bells and whistles are there and everything like this. And then you get to week two and it can be a little bit underwhelming at times, especially when the best game appears to be at noon. Thanks, Fox. Appreciate it. But it's like, you kind of come into this week and you have to take a step back. And this really is one of these weeks that, if you appreciate college football, you'll still find something in every window for you to watch. So definitely going to be a good week. But yeah, just like you said, it's more of a step in the normal direction. But, this first few weeks are this way until we really ramp up conference play for the most part. It's usually the third or fourth week where that conference play really kicks in. And that's really where you really start to see the season kind of take off.
Yeah, so let's dive in. We got 7 games to pick. We are going to hit Ohio State and Oregon, Tennessee and Pittsburgh, Iowa State and Iowa, fun game, Mississippi State and NC State, Arkansas and Texas, Kentucky and Missouri, and Michigan and Washington. So we're going to go in chronological order. Let's start with that big noon kickoff. Thanks, Fox. Ohio State and Oregon. Both coming off of a win the opening weekend. These are 2 teams with playoff aspirations. This is an Ohio State team that was the playoff 2 years ago, went to the national championship last year. We think they can take that next step and win a national championship. We think they could do it this year. I thought they started off with a hot start. Oregon, they let Fresno State hang around a little bit, but that's a good Fresno State team. So they come into Columbus as 14.5-point underdogs. Daniel, you going with your Ducks? I'm curious to hear.
Yeah, when the going gets tough, ducks fly together. So I really like this game for multiple reasons because I'm excited that Ohio State gets to come back home and play a big game after going and playing a big one on the road. It'll be good for us to see, how Oregon matches up with, someone that we project being, a top 3 team in Ohio State. How close are they to that? How close does Mario Cristobal have them? Is he going to roll with Anthony Brown the whole time at quarterback? Is this where you see maybe a start of a changing of the guard? That they didn't show a lot last week and that they're probably saving some stuff for this game against Ohio State. So this is where you're going to see a lot of, I don't want to say necessarily trick plays, but you're going to definitely use the entire playbook in a game like this. So I definitely think that Oregon comes in with a chip on its shoulder. I think Ohio State also wants to prove that they play really good defense. Last week against Minnesota, I think they kind of got, surprised a little bit, punched in the mouth a little bit by Ibrahim at running back. I think that's, a key for them is I think they're going to really try to have a good defensive game plan coming to this game. CJ Stroud, I expect him to have a good game. I expect him to start faster than he did last week. I will say I love that this has a hook to it, 14.5, because I do like Oregon with those points. I like them to have that extra hook because I do feel like Ohio State's the better team. I feel like they're going to control this game and probably have the lead the entire time. I just feel like Oregon's defense is going to keep them in this game. They have some really talented, 5-star linebackers across the board, and then they've got a couple of 5-star defensive backs. That just really, and then obviously you throw in Kayvon Thibodeau, ultimate pass rusher, maybe the best pass rusher in college football in the nation.
Is he going to play?
I don't know. I didn't see if he's going to be in or out, but my guess is he's gonna push to play. But does that mean he's going to be as effective? I don't know. But anyways, I'm in on thinking Oregon, with or without him, I think they're going to keep it close. So give me the Ducks, give me the 14.5, and I'm just going to pray that, CJ Stroud doesn't throw 38 touchdowns in this game.
If you've listened to this podcast, you know how I feel about Oregon and about Ohio State. And a little bit juxtaposed there, my feelings on both teams coming into the season. I think week one only furthered my opinion of both teams. And week one's a great week to overreact. And, well, sometimes you can get ahead on an opinion of seeing a team one time and just maybe they're that way the whole season, or you do, the whole Joe Milton and Michigan thing last year, and everyone's like, Jim Harbaugh finally has a quarterback, and then everything fell apart. Right. We recorded an episode back in, April or May, and we were talking about best games or teams we were buying stock in something, and we talked about this game. We knew it was coming in week 2, and I said that Ohio State, I would lay the points with anything 3 touchdowns or less. I said 21, and I'm laying the points. And I feel just as confident about that sitting right here as I do then. And a few reasons. One, again, Ohio State, I bought stock in going into the season. They started their first game on the road, like in a hostile environment. That crowd was into it, especially because Minnesota hung around. We saw what happened in that game. And what happens is when you play an elite team, you were typically 2 plays away from it being a 2-score game. That's exactly what happened. There was Ohio State got up on a drive, got up 7, turnover, 2 plays later, bomb, and they're up 14. And next thing you know, it's just like now you're playing catch up with a team that could score from, literally 2 of CJ Stroud's touchdown passes were over 40 yards. And with this receiver core, again, you are a play away from Ohio State blowing this thing open. With them being at home, that momentum can kill a team like Oregon, because what Oregon wants to do, they want to play smash mouth football. They want to be explosive, but they want to be explosive running the ball. I think they do have talented young wide receivers. I'm just still on the Anthony Brown is not going to beat you through the air. And if they can't score through the air against Ohio State's going to get up, and I can see Oregon hanging around for a half, and then all of a sudden Ohio State scores 3 and out, and you're up 14. Now you're playing catch up, start to get desperate, and that's when Ohio State's going to pull away. This is a 9 a.m. kickoff for Oregon. Thank you, Fox. This would have been great to get this game in primetime for a lot of reasons, but you're really killing the Pac-12 team for moving them to the Central Time Zone and then playing the game at 9 a.m. Pacific time. That's going to be awful for these players. You can't fly in on Friday and get your body clock ready for something like that. So I think it's poor on Fox to do that to a West Coast team, but that I think also plays in my favor. Oregon ran the ball, again, 67% of the time last week. If you run the ball 67% of the time against a team like Ohio State that can score quickly, I just don't think you can get it. You can keep up. I think Ohio State gets off the bus and scores 40 points. They averaged 13.5 yards per attempt last game. I think they win this game like 45-17. So I'll stick by my spring prediction. I think Ohio State blows them out. So, hey, I'm just glad this isn't like last week and we just pick every game together. So with that.
I think we're going to be different on a lot of these. So I'm excited.
All right, next game, Tennessee and Pitt. Now you might be thinking to yourself, now why in the world did this game make the list? Well, one, because our audience is a lot in the Southeast. this
SEC really moves the dial. I really like it.
It does. We get a lot of views when we do it. 2, this is a fun game. This is 2 teams. So I think last year would have had a lot more similar culture. But Pitt, hey, they're a solid ACC Coastal team. If the ACC Coastal could be one team, it would be the Pittsburgh Panthers. And they are on the road coming into Neyland Stadium as a favorite in Neyland Stadium. 3.5 points. Now, we saw that coming in the offseason, knowing that Pitt, this is a program that has a ton of super seniors, ton of experience. Tennessee had, 30 guys transfer out, fire their head coach, new head coach in here. So it's not surprising given the situation, but it is just, if you told me 5 years ago, Pittsburgh's going to go in the Neyland Stadium as a 3.5 point favorite, I'd have told you were crazy. And so here we are, 3.5 point favorite, Pitt at Tennessee. Daniel, we've both been Pitt fans. So where are you leaning here?
Yeah, so I it's two different things coming in. You know, sometimes when you pick a game, it really could just be about one team, about one of the teams. You're picking it based on what you expect of one of the teams, and the other team doesn't really matter a whole lot. In this one, I feel like it's very fluid because I'm taking both teams into account. I'm taking where Tennessee is mentally as a program, you know, in the rebuild, what else they have going on, and I'm taking Pitt as, you know, hey, this is a team that they're going to pride themselves on coming in and, you know, being the more physical team. I do think that in many cases, because they're so senior laden, they might feel some pressure of, I want this to be, I want to make this a special season because we have so many seniors, kind of a thing. Um, I do think that it will be somewhat of a special season for Pittsburgh. I think they come in and I think they beat Tennessee. I'll say this: if Tennessee wins this game, they're way further ahead in the rebuild than I thought, than we thought, than most of the nation thought. So I think that this could be something where Heupel gets the ball rolling here for the team if he pulls this win off. I think it's clear that Pittsburgh is coming in as a better team. Yes, road games are a big deal because we haven't had it in a year, and so it's still new. There's still a lot of players that probably aren't used to it, and that Tennessee is a great environment at Neyland Stadium, and they're currently undefeated. So, and this is a big matchup for them. I think that them having this kind of a team come in, the crowd will be into it, and I think that they'll be needed if Tennessee's going to come close to pulling this off. I like Pittsburgh in the sense that I think that if you watch the Tennessee game against Bowling Green, I know it was miserable. It was against Bowling Green. Bowling Green really is bad. The more I watched it, the more I was excited that I escaped with that. I'd picked Bowling Green plus the points on separate picks that we did, and I felt very lucky to get away with those points.
It didn't look good early.
But Tennessee, I mean, Joe Milton made several plays in that game, Jacob, that I feel like aren't normal plays. He made them because there was absolutely no pass rush. He would drop back and there would be almost 10 seconds of him just standing back there, patting the ball, roll out to the right, and then just chuck a duck into the end zone. And then, they catch a touchdown or sprint out to the right and go get 15 yards. Like I think he had more time than he's going to be allotted in any other game that he plays this year because the competition level increases that much. Pittsburgh's been known for having a defensive line that can get after it. I think that that's one of Pat Narduzzi's, like, kind of his thumbprint on this Pitt team is going to be something like that. So I definitely expect this offensive line to not hold up in this game. I expect there to be sacks. I expect Joe Milton to make some plays, and I expect him to do both good plays and bad plays on the run. But I do think there's going to be a few turnovers. Pittsburgh's just way more steady of a program, and I think that they probably win at least by a touchdown. I would say they're probably in the double digits of wins. So when I saw it was just 3.5, felt good about it. This is definitely a credit to the Tennessee crowd, I think, by it being as close as it is.
Pitt, I mean, again, 3.5-point favorite on the road again in an SEC environment. It's incredible. Both teams last week had a chance to, and they arguably played the two worst teams in FBS last week, UMass and Bowling Green. You could argue are 129 to 130 in FBS. Both teams had a chance to blow the other team out, and one team succeeded, and that was Pitt. Pitt won 51-7, outgaining UMass 497 to 61. That is how you put away the worst team in FBS. Tennessee let let Bowling Green hang around. They got up 14-0 quick, and then they just never, they won 36-7, but they never just looked like, wow, they are just dragging Bowling Green up and down the field. And a lot of people were predicting, the reason the point score was so high is because of this explosive offense. And Heupel's going to run up the score. they want to make the boosters happy. They want the offense to come into the century. That was the whole reason they hired Heupel after Jeremy Pruitt. And to score 36, I thought was a bit disappointing. They had a pretty decent success rate, but again, they're playing an awful team, and they only had a havoc rate of 2%. They only caused 1 sack against an awful offensive line that Bowling Green has. Now, Pitt has a pretty good offensive line, so can Tennessee challenge that? I don't know. And then on the opposite side, Pitt has a pretty good defensive line. Now, I actually think Tennessee's offensive line can hold up. There's talent on that offensive line. It's just, again, they didn't play like it last week. Could have been a perfectly good look-ahead spot, and they've had some extra time to prepare for it. They did have a Thursday night game. The points are what's bothering me. I'm with you in that I think Pitt is a touchdown better. I think Neyland's getting a lot of credit here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Pitt to win 27-24. The hook of what's getting me right here is I'm actually going to take Tennessee in the points. I think they could have been in a look-ahead spot last week. I think this offense, again, can be explosive. Joe Milton showed me some stuff last week that I haven't seen from a Tennessee quarterback in several years. I love Pitt. You know that. And I think they win this football game. I just think Tennessee is able to keep it close enough to cover at home. And, hey, if they win this game, I'm with you. The rebuild's way ahead of schedule if they come in and win this game. And I think this is a win you should be very proud of if you're Tennessee and you come out and win. Don't think it's going to happen, but I will take Tennessee plus the points. Let's go to my favorite game of the weekend, and that is the Cy-Hawk. I mean, Iowa State and Iowa. This is a fun rivalry if you're a college football fan. College game day will be there. Josh Pate, friend of the show, he's going. You know, he's been excited for this since before last season, since this game got canceled last season. And for the first time ever, not only are both teams ranked, which has never happened, both teams are in the top 10, which has never happened. So incredible matchup. Iowa State at home is a 4.5-point favorite. I have one bone to pick before we break this game down. Iowa State is wearing black and white. Daniel, remind me, are either of those one of Iowa State's colors?
Not that I know of.
And last time I checked, black was one of Iowa's colors. Anyway, Iowa State and Iowa, give me your thoughts.
Fade Iowa State because of the black jerseys.
You never know.
Yeah, first of all, this is why, you love college football. Rivalries is what it's all about. And so the fact that we get a rivalry like this one in the second week, I love the tradition that it's always an early season rivalry game. That's just
love early season rivalries
because we always get them in November, right around Thanksgiving. So you're always, talking junk with, the other fan base at that time. But, in the SEC, there's rivalries throughout the year. This is one of those great early season rivalries that is just, it's fun. Especially if you are have been around it for a little bit. If you're new to it, I would definitely suggest getting in on it. But it's one that's grown better recently because Iowa State's resurgence in the past several years. But Matt Campbell famously has not beaten Iowa yet in his Iowa State head coaching career. So that's something to keep in mind here. Iowa coming off a huge win against Indiana. So that was just a ton of fun as far as how they just took care of business. It just didn't look like they're really in the same league. They just kind of manhandled them. Iowa State struggled a little bit in their first game, but I think that this game is going to be just a battle back and forth. For me, because of it being a rivalry game, the 4.5 points, Iowa State being favored, the fact that they have not beaten them under Matt Campbell, they did not play last year. I do think that Iowa State stands their best chance of winning this game that they have in several years because of how Iowa State is, but Iowa is not going to give it to them easily. So I think that Iowa's going to keep it close. I think Iowa is going to win this game outright. But if I'm going to get 4.5 points in addition to that, I'm going to take it in the off chance that I just, you and I know are kind of on the same page with this. I think, Jacob, Iowa State's going to be happy to get out of here with a 1-point victory because they just want to beat Iowa for the first time under Matt Campbell. They're not going to care, if it's this most impressive win. I mean, 2 years ago there was like 3 lightning delays, and I think Iowa won
That's right.
like
By a
16
point.
to 12 or something like that. It was stupid, one of these really ugly games. So I really expect this to be just like Iowa and Iowa State would be comfortable with just a 1-point win, 2-point win. So I think that Iowa's not going away easily. Give me the Hawkeyes in the 4.5.
By the way, there's their uniform combo. For those watching on YouTube, you can see it. But there it is, white, black, white. Not a fan. Therefore, I'm fading Iowa State and picking Iowa with the points. I really am picking Iowa with the points. You mentioned it. In close games like this, 3 things can happen. Iowa State wins and covers. Iowa State wins and doesn't cover, and Iowa covers, or Iowa wins outright and covers. If I pick Iowa in the points, I get 2 of those 3 options. If you're doing the math, I mean, football games aren't won by 5 points. Like, they're usually won by 3, maybe 4, like 7. So I'm with you. If Iowa State wins this game, they're very happy winning this game 28-27, like 21-20, 41-40. Like, it doesn't matter. A win is a win to them. They're not going to blow Iowa out. On the flip side, I think this is a little bit of, I think Vegas knows something. There's a reason Vegas didn't overreact to make Iowa the favorite. Iowa State was in a perfect look-ahead spot. UNI, Northern Iowa, they have one goal their season. That's to ruin Iowa or Iowa State's season. That is their Super Bowl. So they're just a little bug like to Iowa State and Iowa. So I'm willing to write off that as a look-ahead spot for Iowa State. And I think Vegas is as well, hence them being 4.5-point favorites. Iowa State is one of 3 FBS teams that have never won double-digit games. They've never won 10. The other 2 being Indiana and Vanderbilt. And we came into the season thinking maybe 2 of those 3 had a shot at 10 games, Iowa State being one of them. And again, I just think Iowa performed very well last week. They did have 3 interceptions. There's always a little bit of luck when it comes to turnovers. So I don't expect them to just replicate that this week. And they did have 21 points off of those 3 turnovers. And so of the 36, 21 came off the turnovers. So the score looked a little bit worse in the game last week. But again, I do think Iowa can win outright. I think Iowa State can win outright. I could go either way. I will take the points when I'm really trying to split hairs here. I'll take the points. So you and I are on the same side there. Iowa plus 4.5. Another fun SEC and ACC matchup. Mississippi State is hosting NC State. And again, you have the ACC team coming in on the road in the SEC as a favorite. NC State laying 2.5, so not as much as Pitt. I'll be honest, this is one of the games that I really went back and forth on a lot. What are your thoughts on this one?
I jokingly texted you and said, as much as I like NC State is how much I don't like Mississippi State. And that's still true. I'm definitely on NC State in this game. I don't trust Mike Leach as a coach in the SEC. I think that's just not really going to work. Obviously, this isn't a conference game, but if you look at how they handled Louisiana Tech last week and they had to come back, I just have a lot of questions about this program as a whole. They are at home, and so for that, I'll at least give them some respect as far as I think that they may keep this one close for a little bit. But
Or cowbell.
I mean, I think, Klinga, right? I don't know I think NC State comes in with a better offensive attack, a better defensive line. I really like Devin Leary, their quarterback. I think that he's going to, he's just got some really good experience over the past couple of years. And I think he can go into this hostile environment and come out with a victory. And if it's only 2.5, like you were just talking about how point spreads work, I think a 3-point victory on the road is not great. I think that's at a minimum of what they're going to do. So I feel confident in that. I think that this is more like a 7 to 10 point game at the end. I think NC State probably comes in and controls this game because they're going to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. So I expect them to do that. Mississippi State does have a decent defensive line. So that'll be an interesting matchup. Often, Mississippi State's defense versus NC State's offense. But I think if NC State can move the ball by running it a little bit and open up their pass game. I think they're going to be too balanced offensively and defensively. So give me the Wolfpack. I'm going to lay the 2.5.
Yeah, Fade Mississippi State, right? On the other side, NC
Or
State.
fade Mike Leach.
Excuse me, I said it right. Yeah, fade Mike Leach. NC State was one of a few teams last week that I thought had a perfect start to the season. A lot of teams come in working out the kinks in game one. Mississippi State came in and just made no mistakes. They just blew USF out, never turned back. Defense played well, offense played well, played almost a perfect game in week one. And that's a great start to the season. Very disciplined team. I just like them to come in. They have a very strong defensive line that can challenge Mississippi State. I do think Mississippi State has a good defensive line and they can challenge NC State's offensive line, but they looked really good through the air last week. Again, you have to take into account competition, but I kind of like the matchup of NC State's wide receivers against Mississippi State's secondary. I do like this one to be close though. And so already done 31-27, an NC State win. I think Mississippi State shows up. If their offense played the way that, if Mississippi State's offense played the way they did in the fourth quarter, they're going to be fine. They can win the game. If they play their offense like they did in quarters 1 through 3, NC State might blow them out. So they are at home. This crowd will be electric. I think that's one of the more underrated atmospheres in the SEC is Mississippi State. So I like NC State to win and cover. I still like it to be a close game for Mississippi State.
The ACC could get some face value back, or save some face
after a rough week
by getting a Pittsburgh over Tennessee potential win and an NC State over Mississippi State potential win. So that would be big to get a couple, not only wins, but wins against the SEC, which, those are few and far between. So that could maybe help out.
Alliance 2, SEC 0 for week 2. Let's go to another, again, SEC versus, well, I guess this is technically a future SEC matchup, an old Southwest Conference.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. My granddad would be telling me to say that. So.
Arkansas and Texas. This is a game that before the season we circled and said, hey, we think Texas is capable of losing one of their first 2 games. And they won game 1. So here we are. Fayetteville, Arkansas. Texas is coming in. Again, road team coming into the SEC. This one is a 5.5 point favorite. Daniel, you woo pig sueying? We taking the Hogs?
Sorry, I thought it was a 6.5 point game. Do I have it down wrong? Did we get it on 5.5?
I wrote down 5. Here, I'll check if
on
you want to.
On the sheet that you gave me, it said 6.5.
Oops.
Here. I'll say this.
You can have. We'll do 6. If I sent you 6 earlier, 6.5.
Yeah,
my pick doesn't change.
Okay. Well, my pick, I don't think would. I don't know. Anyways, we picked Arkansas to win outright before the season started. After watching week 1, I was really impressed with Texas and how they really didn't have drama. How they just kind of came through and took care of business. They put a team that they're better than away. Now they're coming into Fayetteville, and they're the Razorbacks. I think with the identity that Sam Pittman tries to put out there as far as just being a tough out. They're just extremely disciplined, well-coached team. Barry Odom, defensive coordinator, I really like what he does. Obviously, Steve Sarkisian as a head coach has had experience against this team. Now, granted, he had Alabama players, but, he ran right up and down the field on them. So there is an aspect of this where I could see him knowing tendencies and being ready to scheme something up and just score a bunch of points. Something else I'm looking at, though, is Arkansas is going to treat this game kind of like the Super Bowl. They're going to be very into this game. This crowd's going to be extremely into this game. Texas is coming to town. So that is a very, very big deal to these fans. It's a very big deal to these players. I think a lot of these players are probably, Texas isn't far. There's probably several players from Texas on the Arkansas team. KJ Jefferson, I think, is kind of, he's still learning as far as that quarterback for Arkansas. He finished the season as the starting quarterback last year for them and then started this year. His best play from scrimmage was a run. I look to see Sam Pittman and this Kendall Briles, this offense for Arkansas. I look to see them running the ball with the quarterback more, and kind of making this part of their game plan and having a strong running attack to try to take some clock away, make Texas earn it. So the 6.5 points, I'm going to take it. I think Arkansas can win this game outright, like we picked before the season. I don't think Texas is invincible, especially, and after one game, this is going to be where we really determine, is Texas really, taking a step forward as a program where they can block out success and keep going forward, or do they regress and maybe take a loss here? So we picked it before the season. I'm going to stick with it. Give me Arkansas plus 6.5.
We picked Texas to go 10-2. And after watching them win last week, I felt really good about it. Like I don't know what it was, this swell of pride. I don't know, like I just started seeing burnt orange and white. I started singing Texas Fight, work on the railroad. That's what their fight song sounds like. Yeah, I mean, give me the horns here to win and cover. We talked about it. I was just so impressed with the immediate, again, week one, we can all overreact. Texas was disciplined and they were composed. They were the better team last week. They were more talented last week. They showed it. They won by 20. And this is a game that Josh Pate has talked about this. Everyone circled and said, upset alert, upset alert, upset alert. Texas wins by 20, puts them away. And it's, Louisiana wasn't even that good. Louisiana is a very good football team. They're a very well coached football team. This is one of, I think, a top 3 group of 5 program, and that they beat last week. Put them away with no drama. They had 9 explosive plays, a havoc rate of 13%, no turnovers. That's how good teams win. The offense looked good, had some kinks. It was week 1. They were going up against a good team. Now you're on the road in the SEC. This will be a sold-out crowd. I expect Arkansas to keep this close for 4 quarters. I just think Texas is up by 3 late and just puts a touchdown in to put the nail in the coffin to go up 10. And so, again, this is more of I'm a believer in Texas than it is I don't believe in Arkansas. I just think Texas is a lot more talented. And after one game, I'm already believing that Sark is actually getting more out of his talent than Tom Herman ever did at Texas. And so this is a big buy and belief in Texas. I'm going to try to get ahead of this. And I think this is also a week where last week, underdogs against the spread had a ridiculous number, like 65 to 70% against the number. I think Vegas might try to overcorrect here. I think this could be a week where favorites go pretty heavy against the number this week. So I like Texas. This opened up at 4.5. It's been bet up to, it's actually up to 7 now. We got it to 6.5. So I'll lay the points. I like Texas to win like 37-27 on the road at Arkansas. Let's stay in the SEC. This is a fun division matchup. The checkout line at Kroger Field, Kentucky and Missouri. This to me is a fight for who's going to be third in the East, potentially second in the East. So again, great game, 2 great programs. Drinkwitz really impressed me last year after I kind of wrote him off. Mark Stoops, we know about him at Kentucky. Kentucky is the 3rd best program in the SEC East as far as just stability and what he's built there. Kentucky a 5-point favorite at home, so no more road favorites here. You laying the points with the Wildcats, or you taking the alpha nerd and the Tigers?
Yeah, this is I love this matchup. We get it early in the season. It's definitely we're gonna say the word litmus test a lot, but as far as this matchup in the SEC East, you got 2 division opponents. You've got a team that's very stable and has a high floor in Kentucky, and you've got a team in Missouri who's actually won the SEC East twice in the past 10 years. So
more than Kentucky has.
So that's something to keep in mind, is that you do have a higher ceiling with Missouri, I think. I'm excited to see what Connor Bazelak does over the course of this season, how he grows in this Eli Drinkwitz offense. Tyler Beatty as a running back, I think he's going to be a pretty good back in this conference. I was impressed with Kentucky week 1 in kind of their introduction of their new offense. I think that until Kentucky gives me a reason really not to believe in it, I'm going to trust Mark Stoops. He's been pretty, true blue so far. It's been, he's someone good to bet on. Past couple years, I know has probably been frustrating for him because he's known that he's hitting his head on the ceiling with this offense. So he finally, brings in Liam Cohen, and then they bring in, Will Levis, and Wan'Dale Robinson at receiver. Will Levis at quarterback, Wan'Dale Robinson at receiver. They both looked good in the first game. So I'm really excited to watch Kentucky this week. I think they win this game by 7 points. I think that's really how this feels. That 5-point line really doesn't bother me. Kentucky's at home. I think, this is going to be one where, there's going to be a revenge factor there because they lost by, I think it was 20 points last year.
They got whooped.
So yeah, they got manhandled, and that's not really what Kentucky's about. They want to be the one dealing out the pain. They're at home. There's going to be a lot of pride. This one's been circled. So I expect, Mark Stoops come out here and lay one on Oli Drinkowitz. So, yep. Give me the Cats minus the 5.
This game will be played on September 11th, which means it's too early for Kentucky to give up because basketball season is not yet around the corner. So they got to keep these fans entertained. So they're going to have a sellout crowd at Kroger Field. Those fans will be all in for football season, and it's not basketball season yet. Kentucky, despite who their opponent was, they really dominated last week. Not only that, but the offense was actually different. I think that was a question that, they hired their new offensive coordinator. They bring in Will Levis. He's a dual threat quarterback. He wanted to show off that he could do both and be more than just a runner. He wanted to be explosive through the air, and they were. That offense looked really good against, again, a formidable opponent, but it looked good. Kentucky's defense caused a 24% havoc rate last week, which is what we've come to expect under Mark Stoops. Just a really good defense. Missouri's offense got off to a slow start last week. I do like their offense a lot. The defense should be improved over last year. I like Connor Bazelak. Again, I'm looking forward to a good game here. I think that Kentucky is 3 points better, and I'll give them 3 more for being at home. Night game. I'm with you. I think Kentucky wins this game by a touchdown. I think this will be a fun game Saturday night, though. So this will definitely be a second screen that I have on with Texas and Arkansas being the main one. So I'm looking forward to this good SEC East matchup. Last game on the slate, Michigan and Washington. So again, 2 fun Big Ten Pac-12 matchups. The first one being in Columbus, this one being in Ann Arbor. So, hey, the best 2, well, arguably best 2 programs, should be best 2 programs in the Big Ten East facing the should be best 2 programs out of the Pac-12 North. So fun matchup in Ann Arbor, 8:00 ABC. This game would have had some more hype around it had Washington not lost to Montana last week, 13-7. So Michigan, though, despite that, only a 7-point favorite at home. What does Vegas know?
Yeah, I think that, we talk about the overcorrections. We talk about the, maybe overreactions after week 1. I mean, there's no escaping that Washington has a floor much lower than we thought they did in losing to Montana. I definitely think that that's going to be, a factor as far as just kind of what we expect from them over the course of the season. You and I picked them to win the Pac-12. I think that that's something that
North.
Pac-12 North. Sorry, we picked them.
Still
the
not
Pac-12
looking
North.
great.
Well, and it went against my gut feeling of just rinse and repeat with Oregon, and obviously Washington won last year. Oregon represented it and then ended up winning the conference, which was awesome. But Washington, it's like the bad teams last year were actually good and the good teams were bad. After you talk about the elite teams, it felt like, Indiana was better than normal. And then this year they already lost a game. Penn State was awful last year and they came in, looked pretty good against Wisconsin. I know you can go through, there's several, things like that. So Washington last year looked pretty solid. This year, that was just an awful performance. I do like Michigan in this game. I like Michigan to win this game, but 7 points, yeah, something fishy with that. It's kind of a smelly line. Um, I'm gonna just, what did we call it last year with chaos? I'm gonna put chaos
Chaos
on this
principle.
one. Chaos principle on this one because college football is gonna college football. I think that Washington can win this game outright. They have the talent to. They obviously had the floor where they were probably looking ahead to this game, played Montana, lost in an inexcusable fashion. But you're going to give a team 7 points. I'm going to take them in a game that they can win outright, and that they might be getting overlooked at this point. So they might be hiding in plain sight. I'm going to take Washington. I'm going to take the points. I'm going to run and hide and just hope that it's close because Michigan does have a ceiling of beating the tar out of them. So we'll see what happens.
I look at this game and I'm like, you know what? No. I'm thinking way too hard about this. I'm not going to overthink this. Washington lost to Montana last week. And beyond that, here's what I've realized about Jimmy Lake. Jimmy Lake, he wants to win games 10-7. And you know what happens when you try to win games 10-7? You lose 13-7. That's what happens when you try to win games 10-7. And Michigan last week came out with an explosive offense. Like, you have to look at efficiency because when you play a not great opponent, it's easy to just look at the score and be like, oh, they scored over 40 points. Like, that was great. Cool. You got to dig a little deeper. Like, Cade McNamara averaged 13.6 yards per attempt. That's not per completion. That's per attempt, which is incredible. Anything over 9 in that stat's good. 13 is great. The run game was explosive. I think losing Ronnie Bell does hurt them against a team that does play good defense like Washington, but because of the explosive run game, I think that opens up a ton of stuff in the pass game. Cade McNamara really did impress me. I was someone who definitely thought, like, hey, JJ McCarthy's your guy, like quarterback of the future, play this guy. Both quarterbacks played well, but Cade McNamara showed me why he won the starting job and why he won the starting job early. And so I'm just not going to overthink this one. I think Michigan wins. I think they win by 2 touchdowns. Washington was really disappointing last week, and I'm not going to think any more about it. I'm just laying the points.
So are you going to fade them because you're mad at them? Is that what you're going to do?
Not even mad. I could care less. It's just, I'm just not going to overthink this game. I'm like, I'm not thinking more than 5 seconds about this. I watched both games. We'll see. Trap game. But I'm not going to overthink it. They could lose. It's Michigan. We don't know what's going to happen. So,
right.
My confidence is not high. But
that's really where I'm at with it. It's like college football does this, so
this was more, it
makes sense. Jacob, everything you said has made sense and you made logical points. All of that is true with Michigan and Washington.
Uh-huh.
And we're putting it out there. I mean, Michigan should beat Washington and they should probably cover based on what we know and what we've seen.
We'll see. You're telling me to trust Jim Harbaugh?
Any expert out there that thinks that they know exactly what's going on is crazy. So Jacob and I are here to tell you
follow
guys
the numbers.
It's crazy. So anyways, but
hey, you can check out
programming note as far as Kennesaw State plays Georgia Tech. Obviously, go Owls. They play this weekend. But I was going to say Kentucky, Missouri, I think it's one of the sneakiest good games of the first weekend. And it's SEC Saturday night, the 7:30 game. But the SEC weekend crew, which is Tom Hart, Jordan Rogers, and Cole Kublik, are calling Mercer in Alabama at 4 o'clock. That is the biggest travesty. They should be covering this game at night.
Do better.
Because they're not going to cover – they're going to cover – well, I say that. They're probably going to get a bunch of Kentucky games towards the end of the season because Bama doesn't really play on the SEC network. They're usually on CBS. Anyways, that's all.
Hey, our new XPR is out, our extra point rankings, and you can find that on our social media.
Yeah, and the best way to do that, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at the Extra Point Pod. Like Jacob said, you can see all these great things there. You can follow us on Twitter. Jacob does a great job of posting the show there, as well as some graphics with our picks on it. And so he posts that on his Twitter account at Jacob Carnes with a K. And then I usually retweet it because I do a lot of hard work by just hitting the retweet button. And follow me at Deep South Daniel if you just want to see the retweet of what Jacob does. But those picks graphics, guys, are really important because that's where you can really see, it's really easy to see who we picked, as far as, the Jacob puts the pictures, logos, and all this kind of stuff. It just makes it nice and fun and interactive. And obviously that's the best place to tell us exactly how you feel. Comment on it and say, you're crazy.
You guys suck.
Why, Daniel, why are you picking Washington? We saw what they did week 1. You've lost your mind.
Hey, be sure to follow us there. Again, our XPR is biggest mover in our extra point rankings. UCLA up 20 spots. Go check out the rest of our top 25. I think it's great. Again, it's more of a power rating system, very comparable to BCS. A lot more of who we'd favor on a neutral field rather than most deserving, which I think is the best way to pick games anyway. But as he said, you can follow him on Twitter at Deep South Daniel. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Carnes with a K. That will do it for this edition of The Extra Point. He is Daniel. I am Jacob. See ya.